Hey everybody, I'm Mark from Personal Combat Defense Systems, and today I'm going to do a video on probably the most important aspect of self-defense, and that is prevention and awareness. Now, a lot of us, we have a lot of fun with martial arts training. You know, we love to hit things, we like to kick things and choke people and do wrist locks and arm bars and takedowns, and all that stuff is really fun and exciting. But I'm going to tell you from first-hand experience, and I think most people that have experienced violence in their life are going to agree with me, it's much different. And even if we are able to physically defend ourselves, we're still left with these mental wounds of having the attack happen. You know, a lot of violent attacks and things that can happen are extremely stressful, and they leave mental wounds, mental scars, and sometimes they cause PTSD. So these are even more reasons that we want to de-escalate. We want to prevent things from happening in the first place. We want to stay aware, and we don't really want it to come to physical confrontation and fighting. If our martial arts training, if our combatives training, let's call that Plan B, and prevention and awareness as Plan A. Now, with prevention, I've always said that the most important part of prevention is don't go to stupid places with stupid people to do stupid things for stupid reasons at stupid times. If you follow that rule, the chances of something happening to you is going to decrease so much, and that's going to be a huge help. Now, as far as the best part of awareness, I've always kind of believed it's following your gut, your spidey sense, or your sixth sense, your intuition. You know, listen to your inner voice. You know, I'm not exactly sure what any of those things are, but I think that they're real, and I think that what it is an accumulation of knowledge that we've kind of gathered through our lives that we put into our subconscious. And you know, we don't really necessarily need training on lie detection or anything like that to know that something smells fishy. And you know, I think we've all dealt with people who are kind of full of it, and they were telling us stories, whether it's a ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend, or whether it's our kids trying to get away with something that they did. You know, we can kind of tell when something's off and something's not right. And you know, I know a lot of us, we have a tendency to want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but if that intuition is speaking to you, I highly recommend listening to it and not taking any chances. Now, maybe you've been exposed to some martial arts training, maybe MMA training even, you know, we call it combative sports these days. And the thing to remember with that type of stuff is that, you know, when you have martial art tournaments, or you have fights that are set up, you're dealing with people that are the same age, they're the same size, the same sex, they have the same rank, they're in the same ability range, and you know, above all, they have the same awareness of what's about to happen, and they have the same goal, and that's to win the fight, whether it's by a knockout, by collecting points, by a submission. So there's also a referee. I mean, it's safe, and you're on even ground. You know, in a real life attack, it's not going to be fair. You're not going to see the person coming a lot of the time. Sometimes that you will, and that's what we want to talk about today. But you know, our goal is to probably maybe get our kids in the car, load up our groceries, and go home. And the fact of the matter is we're not even conscious of that. We're not even conscious of the idea of what we're doing, and the fact that this is a goal, and that this might be a goal that we're about to have to fight for. Where the attacker, who may be eyeing us up, thinking about what they're going to be doing, they're plotting, they're scheming, they are thinking about what they're going to do, and their goal is very different, whether it's a sexual assault, an aggravated assault, a robbery, a kidnapping. You know, very different goals, and you know, they're very mindful of what they're doing, and they have a plan of action. So we want to make sure that we have a plan of action as well. Now, these attackers, they can be really tricky, and that's because they don't think anything like us. You know, these attackers are, in all senses of the words, they're predators, and predators stay predators because they don't go after other predators. You know, a lion goes after a gazelle, not a bear. That's why it stays king of the jungle, so to speak. You know, they want to go after animals that are weaker than them. Now, for us, we're all just a bunch of human beings, and we're not talking about self-defense from lions and tigers and bears. We're talking about defending ourselves from another human being. So whether or not they actually do have the upper hand in that sense it's going to be more up to how they perceive us. You know, the reason that they may pick us as a target has more to do with the fact of how they perceive us as being smaller or weaker, maybe not as smart, maybe we appear to be completely oblivious to what's going on and completely unaware. The fact of the matter is that, you know, they want an easy target. They don't want to get caught. They don't want to get hurt themselves. They just want an easy target. They want to accomplish their goal and get away. So if we can be perceived as a difficult target, then they're gonna move on to somebody else. They're not gonna want to pick us out of the crowd. So the first thing is just your posture and how you carry yourself. You know, a lot of us these days, we spend a lot of time on our cell phones, and so our head kind of starts to go down. We start to get this cell phone neck. If any of us have jobs where we're sitting, our shoulders are slumped over. Maybe we've had a rough day and we're kind of hunched over like this. You know, that gives a subconscious idea to somebody else about us. So just by simply walking, standing tall, looking around you, being aware, that in itself sends kind of subconscious messages to attackers that, like, man, that person's paying attention, they're very confident, you know, they're probably not the one they want to go after. They're going to target somebody who's showing different other types of signs. You know, if you're walking and you sense that somebody's following you, one of the things you want to do is that you want to turn around and you want to make eye contact with the person. Now, there's a lot of debate on this, on how to do this or whether or not you should make eye contact, but it's my firm belief that you should. Now, I don't think that you should show any emotion, and you should practice your poker face. So if you're walking along and you're going along and you see somebody, it's just a simple look and turn around and continue on your way. You don't want to look scared. You don't want to look and try to look mean, and you just want to have a poker face. You're just letting them know that you see them there and that you're aware of their presence. You don't want to give away any of your emotion. You don't want to show your hand, so to speak. You know, another thing is you always want to be leery of your physical state. If you're out on a Friday night, if you're out drinking, you know, you don't want to flaunt this. I see this a lot. You know, I'm from the South Side, and I see a lot of young people. They go in these bars, they come in, they have a couple drinks, and it's almost like they're trying to act drunker than they are because they think it's cool or whatever. Some people are really drunk, and they kind of don't seem to care much about this, but when you're intoxicated like that, you're basically you're becoming a target because you're going to be easier to deal with and you're going to be easier to control. You know, the other thing too is if you're just flat out not feeling well, you know, anything, you know, you're tired, any of these things, you kind of want to keep that to yourself. You know, I see a lot of people on the city buses downtown over the years, and you know, they'll slouch down in their seats, and you know, it's like they're kind of dozing off, and you know, they're kind of out of it, and they come out of it, they wake up and they get off the bus, and you know, those people are going to be a little bit easier of a target because attackers view those people as not paying attention, they're tired, and they're in a weakened state. So you know, you always want to try to stay about your wits when you're in public and stay alert and stay awake. You know, speaking of the city buses, one of the other things that I've seen growing up is a lot of these business ladies who wear really nice work attire, and I see them on the bus, but they're wearing some Nikes, they're wearing tennis shoes, and I always thought, like, oh, well, they must be sharp on their self-defense because they're able to run, they're able to fight, they're able to move, but really it's just about comfort. Apparently, the dress shoes are not very comfortable, but you know, I'm not really the type to wear flip-flops when I go out because if I get into a confrontation, I want to be able to move, I want to be able to fight, I want to be able to run, and it can be the same thing for you. So just wearing the tennis shoes and that could deter a person too. All these little things, they add up. I know they seem small and they seem insignificant, but the accumulation of small things add up to you being a very difficult target. Now, setting boundaries is a huge thing, and I could do a whole video on just setting boundaries in public, and setting boundaries at work, and setting boundaries with your mate and your friends. You know, I try to set boundaries with my cat. That never seems to go well though. But an example that I like to give is if you're a young woman in a bar, and you know, a guy comes up to you, and you know, he may just have really bad skills with women, or maybe he's feeling you out and he wants to know if you're going to be a potential target or not. So what some people call this is like an interview stage. So they may come up to you and they may want to reach out, hey, how you doing tonight? And, they get a little bit too close and they want to they want to reach in and they want to try to touch you in some way. They say, hey, you got a little fuzzy behind your ear, or here, let me fix your collar. This is completely inappropriate. Nobody who just approached you has any reason or any excuse to be, number one, that close to you, and number two, to actually reach out and touch you. So if this happens to you and you react and you show discomfort and you kind of look away and shrug and you let the person do this, what you're doing is you're letting them know that you're passive and you're not going to do anything about what is making you feel uncomfortable, and they're going to see you as someone who's a possible target and move on to whatever the next step is. So right off the bat, you want to nip it in the bud, so to speak. Someone tries to touch you or get too close to you, say, excuse me, don't touch me. Who do you think you are? You don't just reach out and touch a woman like that. You have no business. So whatever your way is, but you want to be assertive. Not necessarily aggressive. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to swear at them, but you need to be firm and you need to be assertive. A lot of guys interpret assertive as aggressive or mean. That's their problem, not yours. So you want to set these boundaries and you don't want the person to cross it. You're letting them know that you're not the person. Additionally, if this does happen to you in a bar and you get that creeped out feeling, your sixth senses start going off, it's not a bad idea if they move on and they leave you alone. Maybe mention it to the bouncer. Maybe keep an eye out. There's been situations where police have been called and bouncers have been told about somebody, and next thing you know, an hour later, that same guy is following a young lady out of the bar. And it's pretty obvious what's happening there, and situations have been stopped. So that's something else to think about. So there's a lot of other simple ways to avoid attacks. And we can start by looking online at our Facebook and Instagram and any other social media pages. For one, I keep seeing this newer thing called geocodes, where if you have your location on, it kind of pinpoint you everywhere you're at. So if you definitely have a creeper or somebody who's trying to follow you or locate you, you're helping them out a lot by having those geocodes. Especially if, I don't know, say this person's a creeper at the gym, and you go to the gym every Thursday at 7 o'clock and you check in there every Thursday at 7 o'clock, they're going to start to see that and they're going to know that you're going into the gym when you're leaving the gym. So you definitely want to be careful about that. Also, how much personal information is available. Is your phone number there? Is your address there? Look at the information that your pictures have. Is there a picture of you standing on your front porch with your house number, and maybe they can figure out your street and where you live from there. First day of school is always an odd thing. I see all these pictures of these kids getting on the bus, and so you have the face of the kid. Maybe the bus is showing the township. You're going to see the bus number. You're going to know what school they go to. And you have a view of the street. It's not a good idea. Not to mention the fact that kids are younger and younger getting into social media these days, and they're using their actual real names on these social media pages. So it becomes really easy for predators to find and locate children. The same thing goes for adults and for anybody when you're out and about. You want to be careful when you're making small talk. I like to use this example because I witnessed it. I was in a convenience store, and this was a few years ago. There was a young lady in front of me, and she knew the cashier, and I guess they hadn't seen each other in a while, and the cashier said, well, hey, how you been? What's new? Oh, not much. So-and-so and I broke up, so, it's just me and the little one at home, and I got an apartment over there at such and such apartments down the street, and, things have been hard, but, we get by. My mom watches the kid because I'm working second shift, and so it works out. And so the amount of information that I got just from being a guy in line standing behind her was where she lived. She lives alone, and I know what shift she works. That is a lot of information to be giving out, so you got to be aware of your surroundings. It's not so much it's not always who you're talking to, but who else is around and who can hear you. The biggest thing today is the cell phones and people's need to be on the cell phones. Now, I can make a whole video on what happens to the brain and why we check our Facebook so much and why we look at our eBay so much and our Instagram and all these different things with the dopamine release in our brain. So not only is it something that we do to cure boredom, but it's actually something that's habitual and chemically addictive. But we have to be aware of that. We're out and about and we're sitting on the bus or wherever we're at, we want to be aware of our surroundings. We don't want to get so absorbed into the phone that's our reality now, is whatever's on that screen and not what's going on around us. That's one of the biggest things that predators are going to look for, somebody who's just not paying attention. Another thing too that's related to the phone is wearing earbuds when you're out and about. I see it all the time. People are walking through the streets down in Southside, downtown. They're walking around with earbuds in. Now, I love music. I'm a musician. It's nice to hear music, but at the same time, you're not aware. You can't hear somebody come up behind you. You can't hear somebody approach you. At the same time, they can even use that as an excuse to get close to you, to get your attention, to say, hey, I was trying to get your attention, and now they're right up on you. Now, a few things that I think people are well aware of, but I'm going to say them anyway, is if you're out and about and you're in a bar and you're drinking, you definitely want to watch your drink. And not only do you want to watch your drink, but you want to be somebody who looks like they're watching their drink. And that's going to deter the wrong person from trying to slip something in it or trying to deal with you in the first place. So you might be holding your drink like this and just keeping it close and you're pretty mindful of it, but I would say put your hand over the top, because even looking away for a second makes you vulnerable, and it shows that you're paying attention and it shows that you're aware, and that discourages attackers to begin with. Another thing that most people are already aware of is ATM. When you're at an ATM machine, you definitely don't be going late at night. You want to go in well-lit areas. Drive-thrus are good, but don't be overconfident there either. Look around you. Is there bushes? Is there a corner that somebody could be hiding behind where you thought you were alone and all of a sudden they're coming out of nowhere? So you definitely want to be mindful of that. You don't want to necessarily, if you have a small kid, you don't want to leave them in the car while you get out and walk up to the ATM. These are all really risky behaviors. So try to be aware of everything when you're at an ATM. While we're on the topic of ATMs and money, you don't want to flaunt your possessions. You don't want to pull out big stacks of money to pay for a pack of gum. You don't want to show people what you have. That again is just kind of asking for trouble. Now, some of the things we could do when you're just walking around, say you're being followed. Like I said, you want to make that eye contact. But another thing we can do is something called a tactical gap. And what this means is that you're walking along, and say the person is X feet behind you, and you think that they're following you. What you can do when you make that bend, when you make a turn, and they're out of sight for that short period of time, you want to judge that amount of time, and you want to pick up your speed. What this does is it puts a bigger gap between you and them. They may kind of catch on to what you did. They may not. They may think, oh gee, they sped up somehow. But that's a very smart thing to do, because if you really think somebody's following you, the tactical gap works in reverse. So if you're X feet and you make that bend and you don't speed up and they do, now X becomes X divided by 2 instead of X times 2. So it's definitely something that you want to do. Also, it may seem insignificant, but you want to cut corners wide. We talk about space management. We talk about a lot of things with, when dealing with an attack, you're dealing with milliseconds. And just turning a corner and having someone right in your face, right in your personal space, that puts you at a huge disadvantage. Whereas if you're turning that corner wide and you have even a couple of feet to put your hands out and to keep a distance to be able to see what they're doing and what they're up to, that's going to help you a lot in a physical confrontation. Now, when you are going to your car or you're going to your house, you always want to have your keys ready. Now, I know a lot of these cars nowadays, they're magic and you just have the key in your pocket and you can get in the car and start it. But for a lot of cars still, and for your house, you're going to have a key. So you don't, I'm a maintenance guy. I've got tons of keys here. I don't want to have to be fumbling around looking for the right key. I just want to have the key that I want, go to where I want, open the door, and go inside. Where you park, a also can make a difference, and that can deter somebody. You want to park, we'll use Walmart for an example. They typically have 2 entrances. You want to park in line with those entrances, and you maybe, if you can, be under one of the lights and be near a cart return. What this does is it puts you in view of a lot of other people, and you're more likely to have somebody see you and not have somebody creeping around in the shadows. Really big on verbal commands, where if you are attacked, you're saying, get away from me, stay away from me, leave me alone, back off. And that's going to help get other people's attention to discourage the attacker. So you want to be in a place where there's other people around and other people can see you. Another thing is if you're loading your kids in the car, some of these car seats nowadays, they are difficult. They are hard to work. They're hard to maneuver. It's hard to get these straps in, especially when the kid's kind of finicky and moving around a lot. They make quick click car seats, and these are more for infants and babies. But you have your carrier, you bring it in, you click it in, and you go. Of course, you want to look around, you want to notice your surroundings before you get in the back seat and put them in the car. When you close the door, you want to lock that door as you're walking around. You never know where someone's hiding. They could be so close and you don't even realize it. Now, if you're parking in front of a wall or a barrier, which is likely if you're on the exterior of a parking garage or if you're on the edge of a parking lot somewhere, it's definitely better to back into the spot rather than pull in head on. If you back into the spot and someone comes at you with something other than a gun, you can open the door and it's harder for them to get around to get to you. Whereas if you're pulled in head on, you open the door, they can put a knife in your back or just physically overwhelm you, push you into the vehicle, and take you away with the vehicle. Sometimes by using the door and holding the door, you may do some damage to your vehicle as you pull out if it's an aggressive situation. But let's face it, do we really care about our door, or do we care about our safety and our well-being? Now, I do have plans in the future to do a video on online dating and the safety of that. But one of the biggest things I could tell you is if you're going to go on a date with a guy and you've never met him before and you're not sure about him, if you told him you're going to be there at 7 o'clock wearing a red skirt, then be there at 6:45 wearing the blue dress. It's not just women. We all can't figure out what we want to wear, and we want to look nice, so we change, and we change our mind and we end up wearing something else. So there's nothing unusual about that, and you show up a little bit early. If you see the person approaching and they're not what you thought and something seems off, if they're not alone, any of those red flags, you can just exit the situation and you don't even have to worry about it. Now, not everybody thinks about this next kind of thing all the time, but I certainly do. If I'm going to a Denny's or an Eaton Park and I'm out to eat with my family, I usually sit on the edge of the booth for one, because I want to be on the outside. I don't want my daughter on the outside. And I take notice of where the exits are, not just the exit of the entrance where I came in, but I want to know where the kitchen is, because there's typically a back door to get out. Sometimes there's an emergency exit by the bathrooms, and I want to know where the fire alarm poles are, because in a situation that I feel like I need to attract a lot of attention or alert everybody, I want to know where that alarm is. In a lot of hospitals and government buildings, they do have buttons now that operate a silent alarm that call the police, to call a SWAT team to come to where you're at. So I like to take notice of all those things when I'm in a public situation or a public setting. Overall, anytime that I'm vulnerable to an attack, I want to kind of up my awareness levels and pay more attention of what's going on around me. Now, some of the things you want to look for with people that are definitely going to be red flags is anybody who approaches you very quickly. Of course, like I keep saying, you want to use your judgment, you want to use your sixth sense, but someone comes at you and you go, hey, and they come out of nowhere, start talking to you, and they're really close. That is definitely something you want to look out for, especially if they're talking fast, if they feel intense, and they usually, if they're up to something, they don't have a very clear message. You can't really figure out what do they want something from me? Are they trying to sell me something? Wait, what are they saying? It's really common down in Southside for people to come up to you and want to sell you random things in a parking lot. Who knows where these things came from, or if there's even something to be sold. You typically want to you want to avoid these people altogether if they do get too close, we'll look at that video on space management. You want to keep your hands out. You want to keep the space. You want to keep them away from you. One of the biggest red flags is if you can't see their hands. If they come up and one of their hands is behind their back or it's in their pocket and you really can't see what that hand is doing, that is a huge red flag because you don't know what's in their hand. It's likely to be a weapon if they're up to no good. So you want to also notice, what are they wearing? Is it 75 degrees out and they're wearing a winter jacket? What's hidden in their jacket? And the last red flag is you definitely want to notice who notices you. Now this is a little bit different than like, hey, I noticed you noticing me. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. But if you're walking around, if you're by yourself, you're with your little one and you're out at Target and you look up and there's some creepy looking guy over there, or not even creepy looking, because we don't want to assume that every creepy person looks creepy, because it's actually the opposite. They tend to look very normal. They're going through the shirts and you look up and they're already looking at you. You want to look out for that person. That's not normal. Believe it or not, you can practice prevention and awareness inside your vehicle while you're driving. For one, you want to keep your doors locked. I know that most vehicles, they automatically lock when you put the car in drive, but maybe you have an older vehicle, or maybe for some reason you hit the unlock button. You want to keep your doors locked. If you're in a rough neighborhood, put the air conditioner on if it's hot, roll the windows up. Now, windows don't stop bullets, but it does stop people to a degree and gives you a chance to drive away if need be, if someone comes up and it's a carjacking or they're trying to get to you through the window. Definitely use your mirrors to be aware of what's around you, especially when there are stop signs and stoplights. They make convex mirrors that you can add to your rear view mirror or add to your side mirror, where kind of like truckers have them and SUVs sometimes have them, bigger vehicles, and you can see a wider range. Now, you may not be able to see clearly if it's small, if you just have a four-door car and you put it on the side mirror, but you'll be able to see a figure approaching your vehicle, and that's going to be really helpful as far as people sneaking up on you. You don't want to hang out at stop signs. If you're going through a risky area, you pull up to the stop sign, you stop, and then you go. You don't want to use that as an opportunity to pull out your phone and send a text message, because while you're looking down, somebody might be approaching your vehicle. The other thing too is when you pull up to a red light or you pull up to a stop sign, especially in a neighborhood that you don't think is very good, you want to keep a good space behind the car in front of you. A lot of carjackings happen because you pull up bumper to bumper with that car and a bad guy pulls up bumper to bumper with you. At that point, you can't pull away. You can't turn your wheel, you can't go forward, you can't go in reverse, you're stuck. You want to leave enough space that you're able to cut your wheel and drive away straight if need be. Do you think you're being followed in your car? Make 4 right turns. That's going to answer your question. If somebody is following you and you make 4 right turns, so you're driving in a direction, and then you hang a right, 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 you're back to where you started. So if somebody's following you, that's going to be a dead giveaway that that's what's going on. At that point, you want to call the police, you want to drive to a police station. And the last thing in the car is a lot of people, they have a illusion of safety because they're inside their vehicle. It is just an illusion. So not only do we need to watch our road rage, but we need to be mindful of other people who have road rage. We don't want to react to them. Let them go. You don't want to start problems with people on the road, especially if you have your family in the car. I know for me, if somebody cuts me off or if someone does something that causes fear in me while I'm driving, I get twice as angry when my loved ones are in the vehicle. But the fact of the matter is I need to just take a deep breath, I need to let it go, and I need to just get into a different lane and let this person by me, let them go by, and do my best to avoid them. The last part I want to talk about is all your different personal belongings that have value. It could be your keys, your wallet, your cell phone. A lot of guys, they keep it in their pockets, women keep it in your purse. There might be situations or environments where you want to keep them in different places. Maybe if you're a woman, you don't want to keep everything in your purse if possible. If they take your purse, you don't want them to take your keys too. That's your way to drive home. That's your way to get out of there. In a robbery attempt, you want to give up what you have. It's not worth your life. It's not worth a fight, even if you think You can take the person. You don't know if they have a weapon, and I always say if they have a weapon, assume they have another weapon. You don't know if there's anybody else lurking around. You know, there's situations where you know, maybe you're at a concert or a sporting event, and we all know how much food and drinks cost at these places. Maybe you didn't bring your purse in. You didn't want to lose it. You didn't want to deal with it. So you're wearing jeans and you're keeping a credit card and a couple $100 in your pocket. And maybe what you want to do is take a $20 bill and put a couple ones in it so it looks like more, roll it up and stick it in your bra strap. So if they say, hey, give me your money, you can take that and give it to them. Same thing with guys. You can keep that separate little bit in a different pocket. If you do need to give up your wallet, guys, if it's in your back pocket, do it with caution. You want to turn, you want to show them what you're doing and hand it to them. You don't want to make them think that you're pulling a weapon on them. You know, typically if it's somebody with addiction issues and they're just looking for money for a fix, you know, they're not really looking to hurt you. They're feeling desperate. They're afraid. I've heard some people say that you want to take your belongings and throw it. So you take it out and you throw it. I don't really necessarily agree with that, because if you startle them or you give them the wrong idea, they may react violently back. I think that it might just be better to hand it over and make sure at that point you can get away and go home safely. So again, it's going to really depend on the environment and where you're at, but if you can keep your different things separate and hold on to what is most valuable at that time, it might be the keys to drive away, it might be the phone to call the police. It depends on if you're alone or not. You know, you're going to have to make those decisions kind of situation by situation. So at this point, I'm kind of leading into types of attacks, escalation, preemptive offense, you know, things that are kind of stepping now out of prevention and awareness. We are now getting into kind of treading in the areas of Plan B. So with that, I'd like to say thanks for taking the time to check out the video. I really hope it helps and kind of makes you think about things overall. And as always, take care and be safe. Thank you.